Wait, what's the serious author pose?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Tennis center stage.
Hi, and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your literary hype woman, and today's author conversation has me so hyped because it's a good friend of the show, and that is Anna Gracia. She first appeared when her book Boys I Know came out in 2022, and now she's back in a big way. And by big way, I mean she put out 2 books in 2 months. 2! Her adult debut, The Breakup Vacation, came out through MTV Books, and her second YA book, The Misdirection of Fault Lines, is out. This one might be my new favorite, though. I said what I said, which she thinks is because I was an athlete, so that's why this one appeals to me more. Without any further ado, welcome to the chaos that is me and Anna having a conversation. Well, welcome to Literary Hype. Welcome back to Literary Hype. You were one of the first people on the show.
Really?
And now you're back with not 1, but 2 books to talk about. So, so with The Misdirection of Fault Lines coming out, they've updated your bio, and it made me learn something about you, that you were also a Division I athlete. How did your athletic experience inform this tennis story?
Well, I knew what the F I was talking about, so that's great. You know, like when you read sports books and you're like, has this person even watched this sport? Or like, especially in movies, they do that. And I know sometimes you have to adapt things for like drama's sake, but I feel like sports are dramatic enough. You really don't need to make shit up. It made me know enough that I was like, I feel like people wouldn't want to read a detailed match because I would think that would be boring. You know, like when you have the terminology, to me, it's like when you read like books that have military strategy and you're like, okay, at some point, like, I don't know what these words mean. And I'm tired of seeing the word like flank. So that's
something I did appreciate about this is it is a tennis story and there is tennis involved, but it's not cramming it down your throat because I'll be honest, tennis is not my favorite sport to watch. It's just a lot of do.
well, it's really slow to a lot of people. Well, I just don't think like anyone picks up a fiction book and then wants to read like in depth about, well, okay, I shouldn't say no one. I don't want to read a lot about one particular thing. Like it's about tennis, but not about tennis.
It's more about the relationships than the game itself, which I appreciate. So good job to you.
Character-driven story.
I love it. I love a character-driven story. So anybody who has not already seen Misdirection of Fault Lines pop up online, tell us what this book is about.
It is a tennis version of the amazing 2000s movie Center Stage, in which it follows 3 different teenage girls. In this case, they're in high school, not college age. So it is YA. It is 3 high school age girls competing at an elite tennis tournament in Florida, with each of them coming in with a different background. So we have Alice, who's our first protagonist, and she is coming from San Francisco, and she's sort of like the misfit and the outcast and the person who's not really supposed to be there. Like there's always one person that everyone's like, who is that person? How did they get here? That's her. And then there is Violetta, and she lives there full time because there are definitely kids that live at academies like Bolletary and Everett and all of those kind of things. And so she lives there all the time, and so she's like projected to be the next big star, so she has all the pressure on her. Her mom used to be a pro. And then we have Layla, who used to be like the top player, and then she disappeared and no one knew what happened to her, and now she's back and she is ready for revenge. She's Eva Rodriguez. I mean, you've seen the movie, yes? Center Stage?
Long time ago.
Center Stage. You only watched it, you saw it once and thought, I never want to watch this movie again?
I watched it at a sleepover when I was young.
Would you like me to quote it to you line by line? I could.
Yes, please.
Stop it. How much recording time do you have? You know what? Zoe Saldana is now a huge star. So I'm just saying she's in that movie.
We'll start talking about the characters a little bit in more depth, and starting with Alice, we'll get the harder one out of the way, because she is.
Oh, do you think she's the hard one?
Well,
I'm always kind of curious because everyone has like a favorite and one that they're like, you know, that's.
I like her a lot. It's just her storyline is it's got a lot of depth and heaviness to it. Well, they all kind of do. But hers is the depth and grief of losing her dad and how that infects how she sees the world and how she plays tennis, her views on tennis. So talk about showing grief in different forms through Alice, through her mom, and how they're handling it differently.
I don't know that I was like thinking about grief specifically, more like the relationships, right? Like I feel like I've written a lot about mother-daughter relationships. The other two characters both have like complicated mother-daughter relationships. And so I was trying to mix it up. Like, can I write a dad? I don't know. It's just, there's a thing like in, I guess all sports probably, but tennis especially, a lot of kids are coached by their parent. And so one of two things happens. Either like they are really, really close, or they end up like totally estranged because there's this weird line between parent and coach that people don't really know how to like balance. Like my parents were not my coach, but they sometimes wanted to step into that role. And I think that's kind of like what can create a lot of like division and murkiness. And so I kind of wanted to show, I don't know, like just the different facets of that, right? Like Alice really liked that her dad was part of everything, and she kind of resented that her mom wasn't. But I do think that there is value to that as well. Like there is something nice about coming home to a parent that is not like quizzing you how your matches went and then like wanting to go over the stats with you and discuss what happened at your last match. Like I just remember every time getting into a car after I lost being like, oh no, right? Because the whole car ride home is the breakdown of what went wrong. And all you get, and you're trapped and you're like, you're not even my fucking coach. So you're going to tell me, and then I'm going to hear it again later. And it's like just this dread, right? And so I kind of wanted to explore a little bit of both of that. Like, what would it be like to have a parent in which you have a healthy relationship with them in sports and you love doing that sport with them, but then also like having a parent that does not give a single shit about how you're doing, which seems terrible, but also kind of great in its own weird way. Like, so I kind of wanted to more explore like those two relationships. Not that like I didn't want to be like talking about her grief, but to me, I think the grief is less about like losing her dad and more like kind of like how she lost it and all the things that are tied up with it. Like, of course, losing a parent is terrible.
So another character that's really dealing with a lot of heavy stuff is Violetta. Talk a little bit about the decision to show her going through an eating disorder and dealing with weed and all that kind of stuff. And it is a YA book, and that could be considered controversial. Why put that in?
Okay, first of all, as she says, it is not an eating disorder. It is disordered eating, which is different. And it's important to her that you know the difference, because obviously she doesn't have an eating disorder. She's in denial about it. I also think that it's just a lot of, I basically just took a bunch of stuff that I feel like I encountered through sports and the issues that people face. And I think those are two really big ones. Disordered eating, I think, is in like all sports, right? Because everything is so focused on your body and how your body performs and your fitness. And wow, wouldn't you be faster if you were lighter? And like, what are you eating to prepare for this and that? And you hear all the time about professionals and how they change their diet and this is big and this and that. And like, I just remember being a kid and like the commentators always talking about Serena being fat. And it drove me like absolutely batshit. Like, she's not fat. She just doesn't weigh 20 pounds. Like, do you know how many girls in tennis have anorexia? Like, a lot. Like literally there have been professionals that have had to like leave tennis because of their eating disorders that have like hurt them so much. I've played with a lot of girls that have had eating disorders, but I'm like, I just feel like it plays all into this, especially because tennis is like a pretty sport, right? Like tennis has the expectation that people are pretty and you wear these cute outfits and your whole face and your body's on display. And the money you make is, I mean, prize money is good, but they really make all the money from endorsements, right? Like tennis is the highest paying sport for women because of the endorsements and because they're pretty. So I just wanted to kind of like highlight the bad side of that, right? Like, it's great, you can make all of this money, but then there's also all of this pressure because in tennis, you are expected to look a certain way. And literally anytime someone doesn't fit that body mold, you will hear them talking about it. Well, this person's so strong. They're so large. And then you meet them in real life and you're like, they're a regular person. Like they are a regular person sized. It's like a little bit like actors and things, right? Like you get a skewed sense of what people should look like. I think that it is a really common thing, especially for girls, to always be like comparing their bodies to everybody else and like wanting to look better. And especially if she is like trying to pursue all these sponsorships and has an online media brand, like definitely social media has been shown to be like really detrimental to kids, right? With the filters and the fact that you are constantly looking at pictures of yourself. And when that's not good for anyone. Like I basically just stopped looking in mirrors once I hit a certain age. Like I'm like, no, it's fine. I know what I look like. I don't need to like, you know, so that, and I also think that, like, to be honest, weed is also really common in sports. I mean, I think so anyway. I mean, I knew people that would like do it right before they went on the court, which I don't understand. I'm like, wouldn't you be tired? But I don't know. It works differently on different people. Everyone's just stressed out all the time. Right. Like, I think that's why they put like 14 plus, right? Same as Boys I Know. It's like a 14 plus mature YA. But I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily even an age thing. I mean, it is and it isn't. Like in the book, Alice is only 15, but like it has to do with, I don't know, it's a little bit like how they don't want dark subjects in MG, you know, like you deal with it whenever you're dealing with it, right? Like there are kids of all ages dealing with all sorts of crap. And there are going to be kids that are younger that have overwhelming pressure that can relate to it. And there's going to be like 20-year-olds who are like, who's smoking weed while they're playing tennis? I mean, either you relate to it or you don't. I mean, I don't know. So in terms of mature subject or not mature subject, I think it just depends on what your life experience has been.
We had dry season, and so after the last race of the year, people would literally go from the bus to the bar.
I mean, the thing is like, I didn't, in college, like I didn't like not drink during the season, but I wouldn't drink like the night before a match. I'm not that irresponsible. 2 days before, fine. You work hard, play hard, blah, blah, blah. I think it's rampant.
I think it is too.
They only drug test some sports.
Well, at least at my experience, we all got tested, and it was all at the butt crack of dawn, and they would go in the stall with you and watch you, and it was awful.
Wait, like they actually drug tested like your big major sports?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, me too.
Ours were, and because you could be tested for 3 different things. So you could be tested for the school, the conference, or NCAA.
Oh, that's true. Okay, that's true.
So
I
we
meant, yeah,
multiple.
sorry, I meant our school.
Um,
Like rifle and like women's tennis got tested a lot. I don't know anyone on the basketball team that ever got tested.
oh, I do. Because they got benched for violating team rules like a couple days later. And I was like, oh, I know where you were because I saw you. I saw you in there at 5 a.m., bro. I know what she was really benched for. Tea.
Well, this is why I went to San Francisco, because then you like have lots of options for bars. People always want to be like, well, which parts are like inspired by your real life? And I'm always like, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, I asked something similar last time, and you were like, did you miss the disclaimer that nothing?
Yeah. No, thank you.
So one of the experiences that ties these 3 girls together is their run-ins with microaggressions and somewhat more blatant racism. Why was it important to you to show that aspect in a sports setting?
Tennis, like, despite it being a really global sport, is still really white and really rich. And so I kind of just wanted to highlight the differences also because it was kind of exciting to get to write like different Asian characters. I think because when most people think like Asian American, they think East Asian. And so I don't know, I just think that it's always important to remind people that other Asians exist, that brown Asians exist, right? Like, and especially because even like within Asian communities itself, like it's just harder, right? It's always harder being darker. And I just think that there are always like more hills to climb, more uphill. What am I trying to say? like each of them has their own journey and each one has a tough one, like a tough things to overcome. But like, I just think that when you are like a minority, you have so many more that people don't even see or realize. I'm going to be honest. I mostly just like think about Serena. Everything in my life is like Serena. This is my love letter to Serena. No, but like I remember like she experienced so much racism when she was coming up on the tour. I mean, I guess forever, but people wouldn't even like believe her. She would say like people are saying racist things to me and they'd be like, you're just complaining because you lost, right? And if you are too aggressive, if you want to win too much, then it's like, oh, why is she so scary? Why is she so mean? Right? So I know we're not talking about Layla, but she's my little baby Serena. Um, so that's why, because these things do happen, and I think that since tennis is like an etiquette sport and everything is about politeness, right? It just very much embodies like the sort of country club attitude of like, we just don't talk about it. And if we're really polite, then it doesn't exist. And anyone who says otherwise is just trying to like make a fuss.
And I love that you named the worst guy Dick Duncan, and that there is a line of Dick Duncan is a dick. That made me very happy.
Thank you. I think calling people a dick is just, it's like one of the all-time great insults. I don't know why, it just is. And honestly, I picked it because so I have a girlfriend that I was on my tennis team that we played college tennis together. And she was like, am I gonna get to be in the book? Like, can you name a character after me? And I was like, well, listen, I tried, but like her name just didn't fit with like what I saw for the characters. And so I said, well, would you mind if I named like the bad guy after you? And she was like, I would love that. So her last name is Duncan, and now his name is Dick Duncan. And she's like, I'm telling absolutely everybody that he's named after me, and his name is Dick Duncan. I think it's perfect. So that was a tribute to my lovely friend, who I thought would enjoy that.
The whole time leading up to that line, I was like, if there is not a like he really is his name line in there somewhere, I was gonna personally ask you to fix that. So I'm
I
glad
mean,
you were ahead of me.
it's for teenagers. What teen doesn't like a good dick joke, right? I mean,
What adult doesn't like a good dick joke?
it depends on who's making it.
Okay, valid. But the cool adults love a good dick joke.
If it's like not in a work setting, sure.
Probably. That's valid. With writing a book with 3 POVs, what was the biggest challenge for you in pulling this all together?
I don't know why I did it. Honestly, like partway through, I was like, center stage was only from one POV. Why did I do this to myself? I think just trying to make them sound different, right? Like your voice is your voice, and trying to figure out like, well, how would this person talk or think or write is really, really hard. Um, so like when I was writing it, instead of going sequentially, I would often just write one character for a while. Like, okay, today I'm writing this person, and then I would just write different scenes of them so I could stay in the same voice and then like patchwork it back together. Like, well, who's in what scene? Okay, let's see. What order should this go in? People that
Did
change
you
their
do a
voice.
lot of plotting, or was it
Oh,
all
I
just
don't
looking?
plot. I mean, did I try to plot? Sure. Did I send my agent an Excel spreadsheet in which she was like, it's in Excel? And I was like, it is. I did try. I did. But plotting's really not my forte. But that's why having a tournament was nice, because then it like at least gave a structure to it. Misdirection of Fault Lines first took place over like a month. No, actually, I wanted it to take place over a whole school year, is what I wanted. I'm like, I love a good long timeline. Everyone else is like, this happens in 24 hours. And then my editor came back and she was like, what about a weekend? And I was like, oh, that's really short. And she was like, could we rewrite it to make it like a weekend tournament? And then I was like, well, that's not how tournaments work. Oh, I guess some do, but not the big ones. Like the national ones last a week.
Yeah, like
Um,
you have to have time for recovery and rest and that stuff we don't know well.
yeah, I don't know what you mean. I just remember, well, like, okay, so like in the book, right, Violetta plays in two age categories. And I totally remember having to do that because it's like, listen, if we're schlepping all the way out to God knows where, like you are registering and everything and you are playing every match. And it would be like, and I remember very clearly because they had to like make rules, right? Like you had to get a mandatory 1 hour break between singles matches. But if your break was only between singles and doubles, it was only 30 minutes. And it was like, oh my God. Right. And they're always like in the summer, and you'd be like, I only have 30 minutes. Like, quick, what can I like eat or snack or like go to the bathroom, change my socks, you know? And then you're back out on the court, and just wanted everyone to feel that pain. Yeah. So writing it brought back a lot of like unlocked memories. Like, oh yeah, I remember doing that. So weird that I burned out on tennis. I don't know what happened.
What do you mean?
Wow, how did that happen? People always want to talk about the world building in fantasy, and I want to talk about world building in contemporary because you know how flippin' hard it is to have to make sure shit is accurate. Like, well, what day of the week is that? Well, what year is that? Well, if yesterday was Tuesday, you got to make sure today is Wednesday. Well, are they in Florida? What time does the sun rise? What time does the sun set? Like, what's the temperature going to be? Oh my God. So I just want to say that that is a huge pain. And that gives some structure, having the tournament. I think some people maybe get confused because they don't understand how tournaments work. And I didn't really think to explain that, but what are you going to do? Did my best.
I don't feel like it needed any explanation on how tournaments work.
Well, that's because you played sports.
Okay, valid.
Like I did, I for sure I take some things for granted. Like I assume a background familiarity with sports. And I understand that like the tournament and the way it works is like really convoluted, but you know what? So is tennis. The scoring is like batshit. Who came up with it? I don't know. It's fine. Just roll with it.
Honestly, the tennis scoring needs more explanation than a tennis tournament function.
It's the worst. I
Honestly.
mean, when I was coaching, every single time someone's like, but why does it go 15, 30, 40? And I'm like, I don't know. It just does. Why is it called deuce? I don't know, people. I didn't invent tennis, okay? The only thing worse are the people that instead of calling 15, 30, 40, call 1, 2, 3, 1, 0. No, no, no. You don't get to make up your own scoring.
No, that's not
Yeah,
how this works. That's not how any of this works.
There are two bad people, the people that call 1, 2, 3, and the people that change scorecards in between changeovers. Everybody hates them.
Okay, well, I don't understand the second one, but I will trust you.
You know, you can flip the scorecards, right? So like in tennis, you're responsible for calling your own lines. You're responsible for flipping your own scorecards. And so you change on odd numbers of games. So every 2 games, essentially, you change 1 and then 3, 5, 7. And so there will be people that will be like, okay, say I'm winning 1-0. And then we have the next game and you win the next game. So it'll be 1-1. And instead of waiting until we hit our third game when we change over, you would walk over and then flip yours to be like, and now it's 1-1. And then walk back. I loathe those people.
That would be annoying.
I find it annoying.
Did you know going into this who was going to win the tournament, or was that a surprise for you?
No, I knew. This is the first time I knew the ending. Yes, I did know. How we were going to get there was a little more iffy. Of course she was going to win. The person that wins.
Of course she was going to win, and you have no idea.
I know.
3.
Did you know who was going to
win? No.
Oh.
I had some suspicions it was another person, and I was wrong.
Interesting. Okay. No, I did know who was going to win. I don't want to give a spoiler, but if you've seen Center Stage.
We don't do spoilers here.
I don't do spoilers, but also like most people haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But if you haven't, you should. It's a great movie.
So the moral of this interview is if you haven't seen Center Stage, go do it.
The moral of the story is first read my book. Actually, you can watch the movie first. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you do both.
So there are references in Misdirection of Fault Lines to a lot of historical tennis matches. Did you know those off the top of your head, or did you have to do research to find the moments that fit the story?
I mean, I might have had to look up the exact date, but no. I mean, I've been watching tennis my whole life. Like, I remember when I had just started dating my husband was during the Serena 2004 match when she was playing Jennifer Capriati, and he like walked in, and I was like, I had screamed myself hoarse at the TV because she was getting cheated. And I was like, oh, anyone that watched this match, it was the worst, right? Like this ball was clearly in. And then the umpire was like, no, we called it out. And she's like, in. And then Capriati was like, I don't know, they called it out. And I was like, oh, I never liked you. Right? You know, people get invested. And then after that match, Hawkeye was invented. That's why the system where they like now in tennis, you're so bored. This is why I didn't talk a lot about tennis in the book. So now, like when they have the cameras that show and they automatically call the lines, that's where that originated from Serena's match, because that was because there was like such an outcry that she ended up losing this match on such a bad call that they changed the entire sport for her, as they should have.
Yeah. You said Hawkeye, and I was like, Marvel?
Sorry. Shot Spot. I forget. I think like each stadium has their own like brand name for it. I know Hawkeye, you think like Jeremy Renner.
That's like I wasn't bored. I was just trying to figure out where Hawkeye, the superhero, fit into.
My bad. My bad. That's the technology.
I get there eventually. It's like Spider Cam in football. But this is not the only book that you have put out. So within 2 months, you put out 2 books. What has it been like for you to both get the writing part done and then the marketing side of things as well to handle 2 books at once?
Well, Stephanie, I'm glad you asked that question. The answer is it's awful. I've never been on Instagram this much in my life. I'm like, oh, cool. Am I going to promote like a Goodreads giveaway the same time I'm also promoting this giveaway and also like doing this blurb and showing this review? I mean, nobody can possibly want that much Instagram from one person. Like, I almost feel bad. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have 2 books. I don't know what to do. You can't like market them together.
Yeah, especially since you have one as adult and one as YA.
Which is why so many people think the other one is YA. And then they're angry because they're like, there's a lot of sex. And I'm like, well, it's adult.
Yeah. So, well, since you're talking about it, let's talk about it. The Breakup Vacation. Tell us a little bit about this story and all the sex that's in it.
I can't tell you about all the sex that's in it. You would have to read that. The Breakup Vacation is about a college girl who basically gets dumped by her sort of boyfriend, but who's like kind of stringing her along and keeping her. I don't know if any of you know what that's like. And so she decides she is going to follow him to Mexico, where he's going. And she convinces her friends to take a trip down there as like a girls' weekend without telling them that he's there, because she is planning to win him back. And then while they're there, she meets a hot new love interest who is also biracial like her. Jazz hands.
So you started every chapter with a movie quote in this book. How much fun was it for you to pick those quotes? And like, did you have any kind of process for deciding which ones went where?
Well, first I have to ask you a question. Did they make sense to you?
I promptly forgot what the quote was, but
yeah, okay, figured. Listen, I was like, I love it. That was like always my dream. I am obsessed with movies. Okay. Like before I started writing books, I used to blog about movies. That was like my dream job, was to be like a movie critic. And then I realized I can't be a movie critic because there are like a lot of different types of movies that I refuse to watch. So it's like being a food critic. You have to be willing to eat anything. So that didn't work out. But I love movies. So this was like my dream, because I'm like, oh my God, I can write about movies. I can put in all the fucking movie references I want. I can put in quotes like movies, 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 movies. So I did that. So I had a great time with it. I loved it. I picked like, so to me, I was like, okay, I basically gathered a bunch of like well-known movie quotes. Like they're all like famous movie quotes. And then for me personally, since I know what each chapter is about, they might seem random. They are not. They are tied to each chapter. Like, for example, the first chapter is I'll never let go, Jack. I'll never let go. Right? From Titanic. And it's about like her trying to get her boyfriend back and like showing up at his house, like, I'm never gonna let you go. And he's like, so I'm leaving. So you know what? Even if no one else likes it, I had a good personal laugh at it.
I thought it was a fun touch.
I enjoyed it. I mean, what are my favorites? Hello, there's a Magic Mike quote in there. I mean, we've got some real winners.
I mean, there's some Magic Mike inspired moments in this book.
There is a Magic Mike inspired moment. Thank you. You know what? I didn't even know I was a Channing Tatum fan. And then I watched Magic Mike and I was like, you know, this man is really talented. Don't watch Magic Mike 3. A correction. Only watch the first 20 minutes of Magic Mike 3 and then you can shut it off. But if you watch the first 20 minutes, double thumbs up.
And that plays into the book.
Yes, it does. Thank you for that move. Seriously, I was watching, so I was sitting in the theater on opening night, watching Magic Mike 3, because this is who I am now, and I've just decided to embrace it. Uh, and there's like this move where he like pulls her up and like holds her legs like this, like to his face. And I was like, that's going in my book. And it did. I mean, if anyone wants to try it out and let me know if it works, make sure you got a strong man.
Strong men are very useful sometimes.
I mean, there's a reason why people like it when they're like, and then he picked me up like I was nothing. It's a trope.
I can say nothing against this. My husband is a strength lifter. I can say nothing against this.
And this is why I always dated athletes.
The Breakup Vacation is an MTV book, which in talking to people about this, I have learned that a lot of people did not know MTV put out books at all.
I don't think anyone knew. I didn't even know.
How did you end up getting this job?
They found me. My editor read Boys I Know, and he was like, hey, you know what I think you'd be really good at? And I was like, what? He was like, writing a biracial party book. And I was like,
because it is MTV, you also got a TV ad for your book. What was it like finding out that your book was being advertised on TV? And
oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I was like, how does one make a television commercial for a book? And all I could think of were those Dianetics ads. And I was like, I hope it's not like that. Okay, so they used to run these ads on TV that were like Dianetics. And like, you didn't know what it was about. And so, only tangentially related story. I remember being like in LA once and I saw the book in like a window. And I was like, oh, I've seen that book on TV. Like I've seen commercials for that book. The only book commercial I've ever seen. And so I was like, this must be like a bookstore. And so my friend and I walked in and we were looking around and I was like, the only book is Dianetics. And then I realized, oh my God, we are in a church of Scientology. And I was like, we need to get out of here. And she's like, what? What's wrong? She was French. It all just fit. Yeah, so I didn't know. And you know what? And I had been watching MTV for like days because yes, I am the person that is still watching MTV music videos, in case you wondered. Someone still exists. It's me. I haven't seen it. I've been watching like TV, like trying to find it, and I haven't seen it. And people will like text me and be like, oh my gosh, I saw your ad. And I'm like, but why haven't I seen it? The truth is, I know what it is, but I want to like experience it, even though I already know what it looks like. But yeah, super cool. I'm also supposed to have a billboard, but I don't live in New York.
Wow.
Like, you know, like the Times Square billboard thing, commercial thing.
The big like books in books them?
Yeah.
Girl.
I know. I'm like, I can't like get records of any of this. I have so much cool stuff that I don't even get to be, you know, all I got to do was go to Target and take a picture. And then like people saw me taking selfies with my book and I had to be like, it's fine. I'm not embarrassed.
The early reviews, and I did mention this ahead of time to make sure that you were okay with talking about this. So the early reviews mentioned some negativity towards our main character, Grace. And I want to take a moment because I don't normally, like, authors should not be reading reviews. Like, that's just a way to make yourself miserable. And I don't like bringing up negativity. But it irritated me to no end how people, it irritated me that people were like, well, this main character is immature and she's not a girl's girl, like she's not nice. And I'm like, how mature were you at 21? And like when I explained the situation to other people, I'm like, okay, what? And they're like, oh, that's a very 21-year-old thing to do. Of like, oh, my boyfriend broke up with me. I'm gonna go chase him down in another country and convince my girls to go with me on a girls trip, but I'm not gonna tell them I'm chasing. This makes sense. So
I mean, it makes sense to me, but I also was not a great 21-year-old.
Maybe that's it.
Like, I think people have lived very different lives. And so I think it's one of those things, I think it's a little bit like Boys, you know, it's like, if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, it's like unfathomable. Because the same thing happened with Boys I Know, like, well, why is this whole book about all these different boys? Why is she only chasing boys? Well, that's the point of the book. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, if you're not on board with like the idea that she's gonna chase her boyfriend down to Mexico, then you're not gonna like any part of it, probably. Right? Like, that's the premise of it. The premise is an immature decision.
Why do you think that society expects fictional characters to be so perfect But that would make a boring book.
No, I wonder if it's like, I don't know if it's like society at large or if it is, and this is in no way like a ding on romance readers, but I do think that romance often sometimes has like a sort of idealist bent to it, right? They want to like get swept away in the fun fantasy. And I think seeing a character that like kind of sucks that much might take that away, right? Like, because they'll be like, well, I'm not like that, right? Some people have a really hard time, I think, reading books where they cannot project themselves into the main character and then they don't relate. Like, this is a really big problem, especially like with authors of color, right? I can't relate. I can't relate. Okay. I mean, I don't relate to every character I read. And you're right, like she's super immature and she's the worst, but that's kind of like the idea. I mean, think about how many people watch Sex in the City. Carrie's the worst. Everyone knows she's the worst, and yet she's the main character. Like, to me, it's a little bit like that. And I don't know, like maybe right in the like current day and age, like people wouldn't watch it because they're like, she's too problematic. But deep down, I'm like, it's what people are like. I mean, I get it. Like people don't, oh, I don't like the girl and girl hate. Okay, but people still do it and they still feel it. And I don't think that it's unreasonable to like make like a fake arch like nemesis out of someone that you think stole your boyfriend. And I realize she didn't, and you know she does realize all of this, but still, like these are, I don't know, these are like normal, regular feelings that people have.
I totally agree. Like, there are still girls I don't want to talk to because they dated a guy after I did. Like, we have feelings that don't always make sense and they're not always the nicest, but pretending like we are perfect or a fictional character is perfect, it does nobody any good.
Well, my biggest gripe is that like feminism is not supporting all women. That's not what that means. Like feminism is a political, like a political statement and a political movement to gain equality for women. Like at no point is she like no equality for this other girl, Katie. You know, like it's just like I personally really dislike her and here's why. And it's petty and it's stupid and I know it's petty and stupid, but I hate her. Okay.
Why is it important to you to show the messy side of life in these characters on the page for everyone to read?
Because I think that's how real people are. I mean, I don't write fantasy. Like I enjoy like the messiness and I enjoy the realism of like when people read it and they're like, okay, we don't read reviews, of course, but this one I think I got tagged in, so it's okay. But basically, this one person was like, "Oh no, I think in reading this, I've realized I'm the tiff of the friend group, and that is why, because I think that's fun. Like when you read something and you're like, oh shit, it's me. I think that's a great moment. Who doesn't like a self-revelatory moment?
It's one of the good things about fiction is you get to see yourself and other people. You get to see life from other perspectives and hopefully grow from that and become more empathetic to other people.
I mean, I think a lot of people couldn't get past the drinking, which I'll admit is a lot. I just like,
But
I
it's a party
like,
book.
well, listen, I know it's a party book, but also like it made me feel like a little bit like, am I losing my mind? Because I'm thinking about like the amount of alcohol they drank, and I was like, of course, yes, it's a lot, but like, yes, people drink that much, especially in college.
21 years old.
Right, like I think that's the part mostly that baffled me when people are like, she would die. She's getting alcohol poisoning. Why are they having that much alcohol? And I'm like, were you not in college?
21-year-olds are invincible, basically. They
I
drink
mean,
everything.
I don't want to like, you know, say anything personal, but like it seemed like while excessive, not a death amount of alcohol, speaking as a person who was once 21. Plus, also easier to have them make bad decisions, which she does a lot of. And you're in Cancun on a trip. I keep wanting to say spring break, even though it's not true. It's summer, but you know.
It makes sense to me, and it got me all fired up on your behalf that
Thank you.
people did not get it.
It just made me think like, wait, I was like, wait, do people not like drink a lot anymore? Like, is that what's going on? Like, I really was like having this moment where I was like, wait, but that was really normal. Like, I'm not like, I don't know. I think it's also hard. I was excited to write adult because the nice thing about adult is I thought that people would no longer scold you for like promoting bad behavior, right? Like I think that was kind of like the issue with writing YA. Like I love YA, I love it. But the way you write about things has to be very different, right? Your characters can't just have sex. You have to like examine the ramifications of it, right? You have to make it seem like you're not promoting that every kid like go out and like go bang their whatever crappy boyfriend right now. And so I kind of thought, well, like an adult, I am not constrained by that. Like people will obviously see what shitty decisions they are. And like, I don't have to say like, and drinking this much is bad for you. Apparently you do.
I mean, I was salty. That was probably the longest review I've ever written because I was salty at other people, not at the book, at other people.
Thank you.
I got your back, girl.
Thank you. I'm like, okay, I don't understand because I'm like, there are 8 billion reality shows on right now. Like, literally, I'm like, who are all these people watching like the Housewives of New Jersey? Is Housewives of New Jersey even still on? No, right? Below Deck. And I'm like, but think that there's not mass drinking. I don't understand what's happening. Where are my reality show people?
Love is Blind.
All of them. Everything is a reality show now. My book is basically a reality show. I don't understand the disconnect. Do people that watch reality shows not read, or do people that read not watch reality shows? Like, I don't.
Maybe.
There's something missing.
You might be onto something there.
Hmm.
Things to think about. Other things to think about is your tradition. That is my favorite thing. And that is when you finish a book, you buy a cake. How did this tradition start?
Not just finish a book, any big milestone. So, like, did I finish a first draft of a new book? That gets it. Like, did I get through copy edits? Finished, right? Like the big milestones. Otherwise, if it's only when I finish a book, I'm not getting cake that often, and I want cake more often. It started because for my birthday or something, my sister brought over this red velvet cake from this like bougie bakery. And I was like, oh, I don't like red velvet. And she was like, I didn't either. Just try the cake. And I was like, but I've had a lot of red velvet, so I don't like it. And she was like, just fucking try the cake. I was like, okay. So I tried the cake and I was like, this is the best cake I've ever had in my life. And she was like, I know, right? And so then I started brainstorming, like, well, when can I have this cake again? Right. So I was like, well, obviously get it for like my kids' birthdays, right? Oh, fucking Christmas. I don't know, whatever. Like, what holidays can I use to get this cake? And then I thought, oh my God, I can just reward myself with the cake. And so then that started. I think I did it like when the book was like coming out. And then I was like, I could do this for everything. And so now I have, right? Because people are always like, celebrate the wins, celebrate the wins. Yeah, I'm going to celebrate the win with my $47 cake. And I do. And it's great.
I love that for you. And I love seeing the pictures whenever you get them.
I know, but sometimes like, is it a little bit embarrassing? Because they'll be like, and do you want anything written on the cake? And I'll be like, mm-hmm. And then you don't get to like write it down. Like they're like, and just tell it to me over the counter as I transcribe it. And I'm like, oh, do I have to? There's other people in here. Like, congratulations to me.
I feel like that's totally valid, and we need to make that more of a cultural norm to celebrate yourself and your accomplishments with cake.
That's why I force myself to do it. I'm like, I'm embarrassed, but I will still do it. And that's the real triumph.
What is the point of adulthood if not eating cake whenever you want it?
I consider it my like sort of courage, right? Like some people are like, I went to war. And I'm like, but I ordered a whole cake for myself in front of everyone and then got it dedicated to me. That is courage.
Last question we always ask, since this is literary hype, what books are you hyped about right now?
Oh, all right. I am currently reading 2 books. Neither of them are new, but I'm enjoying them both. Number 1 is this one. You Are Here. It's the Connecting Flights for Young Asian Americans. The Key is Knowing Where You Stand. It's like a anthology of young Asian American kids in the same airport. It's like just a bunch of different interconnected stories in the airport. Really fun. Enjoying it. Actually recommended by my child, which was exciting. Anytime they read something with like an Asian author, I'm like, did you like it? Did you like it? No pressure. And then I am reading Hyperbole and a Half. I can't show these things. Unfortunate Situations, Flawed Coping Mechanisms, Mayhem, and Other Things That Happened by Ali Brosh. Have you ever read this?
I have not, but I know exactly what book that is because it is extremely popular.
Well, it is possibly the most relatable thing I've ever read in my life. So if you too are mentally ill, excellent, excellent reading. Sadly, also recommended by my child. She was like, "This book is so funny," and I was like, "Ooh, I don't think that's a good sign." But I was like, "Wait, I know her," because I had read her like a blog, and then I found this book. So this is what I bought shopping at Naz's, and it is excellent. So that's what I'm hyped about. And neither of those books are new, but I am hyped. Oh, and I am really looking forward to Eric J. Brown's sequel, to the sequel to All That's Left in the World. It's so good. It is like a post-apocalyptic. He actually sold it before COVID, and it's like basically like a pandemic has wiped out the US, and there's like these kids that are going on this mission. It was honestly like kind of creepy to read. Like I was like, oh my God, do I want to read this? Like I'm a little like, but then I read it and devoured it in one sitting and was like, it's so good. This is so good. I like cannot believe it did not like become a bestseller, but he is releasing a sequel to it. And I cannot wait to read it. It's called The Only Light Left Burning. So that is what I am currently hyped about.
Hang on a
And
second.
you can tell because I'm like jazz handsing it.
Yes, you are very hyped. And
yeah, well, because you know what? He sent out early editions to other people and I didn't get one and I'm not happy about it. And then he claims he sent it to me in an email already and I deleted it. So that might be true.
At least you're honest. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to talk about Misdirection of Fault Lines and the Breakup Vacation. So many books from you. Love getting to chat with you as always.
I really enjoyed it.
Thanks again to Anna for taking time out of her day to talk to me about her books. And we kind of got distracted and just kind of were catching up as friends for a good chunk and had to remember that, oh yeah, we're supposed to be working. We're supposed to be talking about books, not just catching up on each other's lives, which, you know, when you get to that point with an author is just truly special to me. So thank you to Anna. If you want to check out her books, The Misdirection of Fault Lines, The Breakup Vacation, or even Boys I Know, all of them are solid. The links to do that are down below in the description. And if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications by clicking that little bell so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.